Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap, where we help you to think differently so that you can unlock the possibilities in your career and life. Hi, I'm María Tomás-Keegan. Each week, I bring you inspiring conversations to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. We stream live weekly every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming platforms like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where you can interact with us. And if you prefer to listen to your favorite shows on the go, we're on all the podcast channels as well. So if something inspires you today and you want more, please subscribe to your favorite channel, leave us a comment, and share. Please share your favorite episodes so we can create more ripples in the world for women. So today's question for you is, do you ever get stuck in your head, consumed by thoughts that keep you in survival mode, just going through the motions and unsure how to move yourself forward? If so, and it happens to the best of us, we have a special guest today, Carla Reeves. Carla is known for her compassionate, direct style, and she's helped high achievers and ambitious women get out of their heads and into their lives. As the host of the Differently podcast and creator of the Differently coaching experience, Carla helps individuals tackle mental clutter, discover the power of journaling, and take bold risks in daily life. In today's episode, we'll talk about overcoming the barriers that hold us back, use journaling to unlock our potential, and practice what Carla calls everyday skydiving. I can't wait to hear more about that. So stay with us to learn how to transform your thinking and live more fully. I'm excited to introduce you to Carla Reeves. Hello, Carla.
Hi, Maria. I'm so excited to be here with you.
It is my pleasure to have you. I'm excited to dive into this conversation with you. So let's start by exploring what keeps us stuck in our heads. What are the three biggest barriers that in your experience to creating a more fulfilling life for those of us who are high achieving, ambitious women?
Yes, well, I'll kind of start with my story. So I feel like I spent half my life in my head and not focused on really being present in my life. And I reached a point in my early 20s where my life sort of fell apart, and I realized that I had been so focused externally in the external world, hoping to check the boxes that I thought would lead to a happy, fulfilling life. And really kind of coming to grips with that while everything looked good on the outside, I was empty inside. And so, to your question, I think a lot of times we get focused on the external things, we get focused on trying to control the wrong things or checking the wrong boxes, thinking that someday those things are going to lead to that life that we really, really want to live, which keeps us kind of in what I call the someday illusion. And I think the third one is that we often live inside of outdated behaviors. I coach a lot of people from their 30s to their 60s who are often in completely different environments, but behaving as though they were still in an environment that resembled when they were a child, or a young teenager. And so a lot of times we're behaving in outdated ways while we're in a completely new and different environment, hoping to get new results. So I think those are three that show up over and over and over and over again.
Oh, wow. I, I love the phrase you just used, the someday illusion. Let's dig into that for a minute. Let's talk about what you mean by that, because I I'm pretty sure I know. I'm pretty sure I've said it myself. And I talk to a lot of women who think about this too. But let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by the someday illusion?
Yeah, the someday illusion is that someday I'm going to feel better. Someday I'm going to be confident. Someday I'll make more money. Someday we'll travel. Someday when the kids are grown, then we'll have more fun and enjoy our life more. And it's this convincing illusion that we're like working towards that. So it keeps us hopeful, but it also keeps us at a distance from the things that we really want and keeps us sort of off the hook of actually creating those things right now or creating some variation of them so that we don't, we none of us know how long we have. And so
Right.
my goal in working with people is to help you start living more fully right where you are and also lead you towards those things you want, but not keep pushing them off under this illusion that someday they're going to happen.
Yeah, and on the other, there's a nuance around that too. It's like I will be happy when,
When?
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when my kids go off to college. I'll be happy when whatever I get the promotion. It's a similar kind of thing that we are waiting.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. A story comes to mind. I was working with a woman years ago, and she's actually shared her story on my podcast. But she was exactly doing what you're talking about. She was a big time leader in an big HR department. And she was waiting. When we first talked, she was waiting. She said, I just want you to help me to get to retirement because then she was going to live, right? She just needed to get to retirement. And there was so much old thinking in her head that had her trapped inside of, I can't do this until then. And I told her, I said, I'm not willing to let you wait. Like, she was at the time she had regret because she wasn't spending the time she wanted to with her elderly mom or her teenage son. And I said, the reason I wasn't willing to let her wait is because we think that when we get to retirement, then we're going to have the abilities suddenly to now like be present and live fully. And that's a
Yeah.
lie too, because
Right.
you have to
Or the
learn the
or the time,
behaviors.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was somebody who took on so much responsibility from a very, very young age. And so we could get her to retirement, but if she hadn't broken that cycle within herself or pattern, she would have just taken on more in retirement and kept herself from that then as well. And
Right.
so that was a great experience to help her break that before she left so she could start living more fully right where she was.
I love that because you're right. None of us knows how much time we have. And the waiting for living, um, we can miss out. So, as you
Mhm.
were telling that story, I was thinking she's waiting for her to retire to have the time to spend with her son and her mother might not be here
That's
anymore.
right.
Her son may have grown up and away that he doesn't have any desire to spend that time with his mom at that stage of his life. So it is so important for us to recognize where we are today, what we want today, and grab it,
Mhm.
make it happen,
And
because
what
we might lose the opportunity if we wait.
100%. We might miss the opportunity. That's right.
Mm.
And I think that one thing that kept her kind of locked into the idea, like she really felt like she couldn't do it any other way in that moment. And one of the things that kept her locked into that was this idea that she would be a bad leader if she did anything different. And as we're able to pull that apart and really challenge her thinking, she actually became a stronger, better leader and was able to prepare the people to fill her shoes when she did leave. And it was such a beautiful unfolding.
That's fabulous. And it probably gave her an enormous sense of satisfaction and maybe peace of mind and comfort to be able to leave without angst, without any worry. Because I suspect, given the way you've described this woman, she carries a burden of responsibility, and leaving probably would have been very difficult for her if she had not prepared her departure, her succession plan.
Yes. Yes. And then when she actually retired, we circled back together and she then had the tools and the skills to live and
Yeah,
enjoy retirement.
right, right. And what a beautiful thing that is, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the noisy mind, right? I have chatter in my head all the time. And I have learned some tools to for myself that I was talking to about this very thing yesterday to a colleague friend of mine. So, what is the impact of a noisy mind, and what are the keys to mastering that mental clutter? What do you think?
Oh gosh. Yeah, the impact. I mean, there's so many, but the things that come to mind are one, first and foremost, is it keeps us from being present. So I remember working with a client and he was saying he was off on a trip with his significant other and they were on vacation. And I think his partner turned to him and said, like, I know you're here, but are you really here?
Mm,
And I think that just captures what happens when we're lost in our head. And when we're lost in our head, we're not actually, even though physically we might be in the moment, we're not actually there. And the people that we're with can feel that. And we miss out. It robs us of actually experiencing the very things we desire. But sometimes we think like, oh, and well, same thing, someday illusion, or like, I've got to figure this out, or you're too busy thinking about your to-do list or whatever it is. And then we have regret because we miss the actual moments that we're waiting for that are right in front of us. So I think that's the first one. The other one that I see a lot is just confusion because there's so much noise. We have a lack of clarity because we're not managing all the noise in our mind. And so we second guess ourselves. We are distracted. We don't do our best work when we're lost in our head and we're not managing that noise. So that would be the second one. The third one would be just a lack of peace. Everybody I work with, I feel like that's one of the things that they want is more peace of mind.
mhm.
And we look again to, like get somewhere to a place where we're going to have more peace of mind. And it's that too is an illusion because until we can learn to actually manage our mind, it's very difficult to find peace of mind. And then stress, overwhelm. I mean, we could go on and on, Maria.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. We could, but those are great, and we can't ignore the stress and the overwhelm. But all that noise creates all of those things you just talked about. Creates confusion, lack of clarity, distraction for sure, right? And this lack of a sense that things are okay, right?
Yes.
We are just stuck in our heads with all of this going on. So let's talk. You mentioned managing it. Let's talk about how how do we do that? What are some of your tips for managing that noise in our minds?
Yeah, so I think the first one would be something I heard years and years ago, which is don't believe everything you think. That was one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got, which helped me to have permission to actually question and challenge and observe what was happening in my mind. Because for so many years, I just let my mind sort of run my life. And when we've had certain patterns of thought that have been around for years and years and years, we start to relate to it as though it's the truth. And so, one is just don't what if you didn't have to believe everything that you think? um, Two is starting to actually take inventory and stock of what is circling in your mind on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Because chances are you're allowing a lot of things to land and hang out in your mental environment that are debilitating your confidence, your performance, your ability to connect with others, all of those things. So, managing it looks like having some sort of tool, which I use journaling as a tool to empty your mind, just emptying the mental trash daily, just like we take the trash out in our homes. We have to take out the mental trash. And that alone starts to provide some relief.
I love that. I love that. Those are. Don't believe everything you think. That's such a great way to put it, right? And the question that comes to my mind when you say challenge it, challenge the thoughts that come into your head. Take inventory of what you're thinking about and how you're thinking about it, and negative versus positive, all of that stuff, right? But the question that comes to my mind that I use all the time with myself and my clients is, so is it true?
Yes.
What you're
Is this
thinking,
true?
what you're is it true? Is it true today? Right? It might have been true. It might have served you well when it it came into your life in some way, right? But is it true today? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it true? Do you have evidence otherwise?
Right. 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 And what is that evidence? So you were talking about journaling. Let's talk about that, because I know that's a cornerstone of the work you do. So how can it be used as a tool in our everyday life and in our businesses, in the work we do?
Yeah. So, first of all, kind of like I said, one, it can be a tool just to empty the mental trash, just using it to literally just empty your mind, empty your thoughts. Start with the first thought and just write until there's no more to write, or take 5 minutes, set a timer, and just empty your thoughts. That alone is just going to, I see it over and over again. That's kind of the first part of the work I do with clients is they're just literally emptying their thoughts and sort of raising awareness to what is happening in your head space. So that would be the first one. The next one is to just kind of, once you get it out of your head, you can stand back and be a little more objective and get a little bit of distance, because when it's all circling in your head, it feels loud, can feel overwhelming, it can feel painful, you can have a lot of emotion around it, but getting it out, you can stand back a little bit. And one of the things that I have people do is like go back over that writing. If you do it, one day, or I would recommend even doing it over a course of 5 days, just emptying your mind and then going back with a highlighter or a pen and circling or highlighting words and themes and patterns that start to show up, because those are going to give you a really good landscape or picture of what's happening in your mind on a daily basis. And that will give you an image of a lens that you're navigating your life with. And that's the power I see when I work with people is often they're operating and living with, if you imagine like a pair of glasses, they're looking through a pair of glasses, and that lens is impacting everything you do and your experience of it. And that is a really, really powerful exercise.
I I am a journaler. I don't do it every day, but I do it now when you, like what you just described. There's something going on in my head and I can't get out of my head. And it's so true. It helps me to get it out of my head onto a page, and I can distance myself literally from it. I can walk away from what I wrote and then come back and look at it as an objective observer. And when we
Yes.
do that, then we get to notice those patterns that you were talking about.
That's exactly right. Well, and you also asked, I think, how can we use this in our even in business life? And
Yeah.
even taking, kind of like you said, sometimes if I'm grappling with something around work or feel like I'm spinning my wheels, sometimes taking 5 minutes to just kind of write out everything that I'm grappling with, that alone can usually help me get to like the root of what's causing me to spin my wheels, or something that I can't see when I'm just going through it, thinking about it or talking about it.
Right, right. And you know what? If we think about brainstorming at work, we're in a meeting and we are just grappling with a problem. We're looking for solutions. You have a whiteboard to the side of you. That's a great tool. And when we write ideas on a whiteboard, we're journaling, right? We're
Yes,
getting
absolutely.
multiple ideas or ideas out of multiple people's heads, right? And just laying them all out there and then stepping back. It's exactly the same thing. So I
100%.
love that you brought that up. So I know a lot of people, when I talk about the benefit of journaling with some of my clients, they'll say, "Oh, I'm not a writer. I don't know how to journal. I This is not for me." What do you say to them?
I've heard that so many times over the
Yeah.
years, and it's true. It may not be for everybody, but this is the way I like to think about it, is that you don't have to like writing. You don't have to like journaling. You don't have to be good at it. Writing is not the focus. Writing is the vehicle to helping you get to where you want to go or who you want to be. And journaling is it's just the tool in the vehicle. The focus is you, and the focus is your desire. And so if we think about even just, going to the gym, I don't like to get on the treadmill, but I know the treadmill helps me create other results in my life that I am committed to. So if you can think about it like that, um, you don't have to love it to do it. You just have to want something and be willing to try this potential vehicle as a tool to getting there.
That's a great analogy. Journaling is like the treadmill.
Yes,
You
for
don't
your
have to like it, but what you're looking for are the results from it.
yes.
And that's what you're looking for, are the results from it. So look at journaling. I'm going to use that analogy with some of my clients when the next time they say, "I'm not a writer. I don't like to write."
Yes.
The other thing I think a lot of people think is that they have to write prose, right? They have to write in what is it, iambic pentameter or something like that. It has to rhyme, and none of that is true. None of it. If
Mm.
you write single words, you're getting them out of your mind. That's the whole purpose, right? If you write phrases, you don't have to write in full sentences. You don't have to use punctuation. I like, for some of my clients who are not writers, they see themselves not as writers, I teach them about mind mapping,
Mm.
which is literally getting words out, just words, right? And figuring out how they connect.
Yes. There's something, when I first started writing, um, or really journaling as a practice, like a daily practice, I wanted it to sound good. I wanted to write like a dear friend that was amazing. And there was so much judgment.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, there was something I wanted that kept me showing up and doing it. And I stayed with it. And as I did, I noticed that all of that initial judgment started to fall away, and I started to find a voice underneath all of that initial stuff. And if you're willing to write long enough to get to that, that's when it gets really good. I mean, I see it with
Mm,
clients all the time. Like, we identify like we are our thoughts, but the fact that we can observe our thoughts reminds us that we're not our thoughts. And when I can help a client get beyond that initial noise is when they tap into their truest voice. And that is a beautiful, beautiful experience.
I love that you brought that word into play here, voice, because I think we don't often allow ourselves to hear our own voice, to give our voice the air it needs, right? If we don't voice our thoughts or our opinions, we can't be heard. And if we are not heard, then there are all kinds of things that happen that can negatively affect us if we don't feel
Mhm.
heard, right? We have to learn to use our voice, and journaling, writing out our thoughts, helps to give our voice air.
Mhm.
And then one of the things about journaling that I think is so powerful is reading it back
Mhm.
out loud to ourselves so we can hear it, so we
Yes.
can hear the patterns, so we can acknowledge the feelings. That's a powerful uh, step in journaling, I think. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yes, I do. I sometimes I will, cut and paste a journal that somebody wrote, say a month ago, and kind of remind them of that, what they wrote and what they tapped into. And I think that kind of ties to another way that you can use this in your business is taking 5 or 10 minutes to write before a meeting or before an important conversation to really get clear about what it is that you want to communicate.
Mhm.
There was a woman years ago that I was coaching, and she was getting ready to go into a meeting, and she had a lot of emotion and negative feelings about the person she was meeting with. And she already in her mind knew how this meeting was going to go, and it wasn't going to go well. And she took like 10 minutes to write before that meeting. And I asked her to identify your ideal outcome. What would you love to walk away with as you leave this meeting? And she described that. And it was, it was kind of a win-win-win for everybody. Um, and then we talked about like how could you show up to that meeting in a way that could make that more likely, and she completely changed the direction of that meeting by taking a little bit of time to prepare and think about it and really get clear on the things and places where she has control to impact the outcome. And
Right.
that's where it gets so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it's so important how we show up for things like that, right? And preparing for it in a way that um, puts us um, in a position to be able to influence the
Mhm.
outcome.
Yes.
And if we go in with that negative mindset that she had to start with, then the outcome is it's already written.
It's
It's
already
done,
written.
right? She's already shown up that way,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
we have control over how we choose to show up, how we choose to prepare, and how we envision the outcome we want. And the
that's right.
and yeah, and like you said, the likelihood of that happening is much greater when we do that.
Yes.
And I love that you had her write it down before. Now, because that, again, it's getting the thoughts out of your head, clearing
Yeah,
your head to allow the more positive thing to even take hold.
that's exactly right. And I've had, multiple clients over the years say that when they're in a writing practice of just kind of emptying and writing, that they find that they can communicate better and more clearly in their everyday life. And I think that just speaks volumes for the process.
Giving yourself voice, right? Giving your voice the opportunity to organize your thoughts, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
to be able to convey what you mean to say in a way that is, 'cause if you're emptying your thoughts, you're also giving your emotions motion, which I believe
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
is absolutely imperative, because we have a lot of emotion tied up in our thoughts. And when
A
we get them
lot.
out, we're giving our emotions motion and getting
Correct.
those out. And then we can look at all of that and decide how we want to show up for that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, this is so good.
Mhm.
This is so good. You told us a couple of real life stories. I love the stories. Do you have any more for us?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think one that comes to mind, just an example of how we can get so locked into our thinking and create so many rules around how we have to live or behave. And the story that comes to mind is a woman who, um, a big leader, a big job, lots of responsibility, a family, a home, a mom, and she had, I think she had like weekly dinner with her mom, that her mom would come over for dinner, and it was on a certain day. And she had written in her journal that like this was just creating so much stress in her life, this Sunday dinner or whatever it was. But in her mind, she could not change it because she was somebody who, again, took on a ton of responsibility, but also had a high priority for making sure everybody else was happy, even to the detriment of her own well being. And I think I just asked her a question in her journal like, what if you change the day, or what if you change the time? Like, what would make this a little bit easier, a little bit lighter, or a little bit more fun? Because she was still committed to having the connection time as a family with her mom. But for some reason, she just had this rule that she couldn't change it. And so that was like such an example of low hanging fruit. She ended up just changing the day or the time or moving it back an hour or something so simple that literally gave her so much freedom and more peace of mind, and it all worked out. It wasn't a big deal. So I think those are the examples I see again and again where we just have got ourselves locked into something that is creating so much stress, and we feel like we have no say, and we do have say. There are always things that we can do to shift the dance, if you will, and create more fulfillment right there. That was something
Yeah.
she implemented right away that made a huge difference.
We do that so often, don't we? I'm so guilty of that. I am so guilty of that. And I'm thinking in my head, I can't change something is stressing me out because the other person will feel badly or not be able to
Mhm.
change or whatever. There are all kinds of excuses that I make for them in my head. And if only we would just ask.
Yes. Ask.
Yeah, just ask. Just ask. Would it be possible if we could? I was thinking about, I'm speaking to myself right now because I need to do this more. I need to ask more. Would you mind if? And
Yeah.
I am relatively certain if I did that more, that I would be able to reduce some of that sense of responsibility, the stress, the give myself maybe more space to take care of
Mhm.
me first. Yeah,
Yeah, and I see
good
so
story.
often that, like, when people honor that part of themselves to have more space or more well-being or whatever it is, that it almost always serves everybody else. She's the
Yeah,
mother in her home. Like, her having more peace and less stress impacted her daughter, impacted her
of course.
marriage, impacted everybody.
Of course. Of course. And that's something we don't recognize often. We don't realize that. I say this to my clients, and every time I say it to my clients, it's a reminder to me. If we are not well, if we are not at our
Mhm.
best, everyone who depends on us is impacted by that.
Mhm.
But when we are at our best, when we ensure that,
Mhm.
then everyone benefits.
That's right.
And
That's
that's a
right. There's
great
such
example
a
of it.
ripple impact. I think in
Yeah.
our mind, we can feel like it's selfish, and I think that's what keeps us from taking responsibility for it. And I believe it to be one of the most generous things that you can do because of what you
For
just said.
everyone, right,
Yeah,
for everyone. So, yeah, it might take you away from them to do something for yourself for that period of time, but in the long run, everyone will benefit from it.
that's right.
Yeah, good stuff, Carla. You talk about interactive journaling. I'd like to understand a little bit more about that. So, how can tell us what it is, describe it for us, and then tell us how it can help us level up.
Yeah. So, often we're alone in our journal, right? It's just a page and we're writing and it can feel very alone. And sometimes it's hard to see your own blind spots or see anything different because you're just in the muck with all of it. And maybe you've been traveling in that muck for a long time. So, interactive journaling is, I use a platform where my clients can journal and I'm on the other side of their journal and I'm there to listen, to guide, to hold space, to ask thought provoking questions, to say, hey, like, highlight something, look at this, and say a little bit more about this and go deeper. And so it's a journal that talks back to you in the best way, to help you go deeper, to see things from different angles, to try on different perspectives. And the experience of that is, it's magical. You
Mm,
know, we think, I mean, in all the hundreds of people that I've coached, we feel so alone in our thoughts. And we think we're the only one that has these thoughts and, is going through this thing. And it's just not true. And so having somebody on the other side to just create a space that isn't there to judge or question anything, but just hold space for your thoughts to be, I always say, like, we're just giving them light and air to breathe. So they're not in the darkness of your mind any longer. And that process alone is so healing for people. It's pretty extraordinary.
I love, I love, I love that idea. A lot of people don't want to share their thoughts, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Um, but having someone on the other end of those thoughts to see them, to read them, to hear them, and to just ask, what what about this? What
Mhm.
more can you say about this?
Yeah, it reminds me, just this morning, I'm creating a new program for interactive journaling, and I'm training guides at the moment who will be on the other side of the journal. And this morning, we were talking about this and we actually reviewed a journal of one of the guides. I asked them if they wanted to submit a journal to get some more feedback. And so we all read her journal, and one of the other guides reflected back to her what she heard in her journal. And the journaler, had just been focused on the negative, all that was negative about her in what she wrote. And the guide saw her strength and saw that, like, just all that came through was like her zest for life and her love of learning and her commitment. And it was
Wow.
so awesome to see that, because the journaler said, like, I never saw it that way. Like I was so focused on how I'm just wrong and bad and I shouldn't be like this. And that's the power of what happens is like just a door opens that you didn't know was there and you get to see yourself in a new way. It's such an honor, honestly, to actually be
Yeah.
able to read people's journals.
There's huge power in that, in having someone say to you, this is how I see you.
Yeah.
This is how I see how you see yourself, but this is how I see you.
Yeah.
And then be able to, you know, I do an exercise with my clients about who do you admire, right?
Mm.
And think about all of the things they admire about other people, and then ask them to turn it inward and say, what of
Mm.
those qualities do you see in yourself? And
Ah.
then be able to hold space for that, and then share how I see them as
Mhm.
well. And it's just it's eye opening, and it's empowering to have someone say to you, this is what, I read between the lines, and this is what I see.
Yes.
And sit back and go, whoa, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Eye opening, aha moments. Yeah.
Yes.
Powerful stuff.
I remember a leader saying to me once years and years ago, she said, so I don't remember exactly, but what I remember is she said, Carla, I think you're just dipping your toe in the pool. And I think you are capable of just jumping in the deep end. And that to me, like when somebody else can speak that into you, what they see possible, like is
Yeah.
such a gift.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. Shiloh is making his exit here.
I love it.
Okay, so I said in my introduction that I was intrigued by something you say. You call this everyday skydiving. So what the heck is everyday skydiving, and what's the art of it?
Yes. So years and years ago, I went skydiving, and it was something that I had wanted to do, was terrified to do, but I wanted to be on the other side of that, knowing that I was capable of getting through that. And after that experience, I started to feel like, gosh, if I could do that, I can do this. If I can do that, I can do this in my everyday life. And it just kind of came to me that we don't need to go skydiving. But there's opportunities every day in our life that are like skydiving. They feel as scary and as big, and but they're the very things that can literally change our life or create more fulfillment in living right where we are. And it can look like in relationships, maybe there's tension and you want to run away. In those moments, skydiving might look like leaning in closer. If it's your spouse, it might be leaning in and asking for a hug. In work, it might be speaking up in that meeting that you've wanted to speak up and use your voice, but you're just been too afraid. A skydive is actually speaking up the next time. So it's these very little moments, that opportunities in our everyday that are just waiting for a skydive. And that skydive on the other side of that is something that you've been desiring, something you've been waiting for. And it's that willingness to leap.
Mm, that willingness to leap, and it doesn't have to be a huge leap, right?
That's
It's just
right.
like you said, it's those everyday small moments where you can lean in or speak up, or there are so many. If you think about it, there are so
That's
many
right.
little ways that you can just step just a little bit outside your comfort zone, just step a little bit outside the norm for you. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to jump out of a plane to do this, right? You can
That's
make
right.
skydiving an everyday occurrence when you look at it. I love this metaphor. It's so, it feels so honestly so easy to do when you put it in those terms, right? Everyday skydiving, small moments where you can make just a slightly different choice than you've made before that maybe just takes you a step closer to something you really want.
Yes. Yeah. I see it all the time in relationships. We're getting this dance in a relationship and feel like, it's never going to change. And really all that has to happen is you change your footing ever so slightly and it changes the dance entirely because they have to respond differently. So yes,
Right, right.
tiny, tiny moments that ripple to those larger things we want.
This has been such a lovely conversation. I
Mm.
really wish it could go on and on. I loved this, Carla. It's just been delightful talking with you. I love where we've gone with this, but we have to wrap things up a little. So I'd like you to help us. What are some of the key takeaways that you would like our audience just to take into their next skydiving adventure?
Yeah, I think just notice. I mean, really notice what stirred in this conversation for you. I think that's the most important because I think that it can be different for everybody. There might be one thing that Maria or I said that stood out to you. Take that to your journal. Um, but I think overall, I really believe that having quiet reflection time or writing time is a superpower that not many people are using. We live in a really noisy world. And if you just, from this conversation, carved out a little bit of time to prepare for that meeting or that important conversation, or just took time in the morning to empty your thinking for the next week and just maybe that's your skydive and see what happens. Be willing to commit to that for a few days or 5 days and reflect on what shifted or what changed because something will. I think that's a gift you give yourself and everybody around you. Like we talked about, the ripple impact is big. So that would be my invitation.
That's a beautiful invitation, and it does take a little commitment to do it every day for a few days and see the impact. Doing it once probably won't give you exactly what you want from it,
That's
but yeah, making that small commitment of 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day for 5 days. That sounds like just a beautiful challenge and one that I think will impact a lot of people. I loved it. Thank you, Carla. I know that there are people who are going to want to reach out and connect with you and learn more from you. What's the one best way they can do that?
my website would be the best place, and that's carlareeves.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I
Mm.
love your energy. I love all the things that you stand for and that you teach. I know that you help a lot of people in this world,
Mhm.
and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been an honor.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And for those watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of this community. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, click a star, and share it. Creating and sharing resources for women is one of my favorite things to do. Another favorite thing is being a career and life coach for women navigating challenging times and helping them get unstuck, explore new possibilities, and find harmony in their careers and lives. So, if something in this episode resonates and you want a fresh perspective about your situation, reach out. Let's talk. The links to connect with Carla and me are in the show notes below. And then let's meet again here next Thursday, same time at 10 a.m. Pacific time for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.